Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, everybody, and welcome to On the Sports Lines for, it's July 9th, 2020. We have a tropical storm coming to New York tomorrow. 2020 has everything that you've ever wanted but never actually wanted at the same time. With me, as always, is Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on?
Good evening, Rabbi.
All right, so Jay wanted to get into one topic before we get into the actual opener of the week, and that's Philadelphia Eagles, soon to be former Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver DeSean Jackson, igniting controversy by sharing anti-Semitic comments on Monday to Instagram. Jackson posted a quote on his Instagram story, which is attributed to Adolf Hitler, stating in part that the Jews will blackmail America, they will extort America, their plan for world domination won't work if the Negroes know who they were. Needless to say, a lot of backlash. And then Steven Jackson, basketball player, also got backlash when he kind of agreed with Jackson. All right, let's get some quick thoughts starting with Jay.
Let me say this. That comment is a stereotype that has been affixed to Jewish people ever since certain bankers helped finance the American Revolution. And it's taken on a life of its own, and at various times throughout history, it's reared its ugly head more often than not. My issue, other than the fact that, A, it's flat out lies and it's flat out anti-Semitic, and it's offensive to me as someone who's of the Jewish faith, how do two guys like that, who, especially Jackson, who has been at the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement, who I respect for taking that position and being one of the faces of it, how do you not recognize the similarities throughout time between the Jewish people and Black people, especially Black people here in America? You know, as much as America has persecuted, Black people since they were brought over here in chains on slave ships, through the Civil War, through the 60s, and even, through what we're dealing with right here and now, which hopefully will be the watershed moment that actually turns this thing around. How do you not recognize that the Jewish people have been persecuted throughout history, throughout time, across multiple continents, including this one? How do you recognize that Jewish people have not walked arm in arm with your people throughout the civil rights movement? It's been a common theme of mine that any Jewish person who's a racist is a fracking hypocrite. We've gone through the same things. Man, now maybe not as much in this day and age, but the similarities are there. So for you guys who are looking for white people to continue to support this movement, to put your foot in your mouth like that is beyond egregious in terms of faux pas, if you will, to use the nicety as terms. I have to give Julian Edelman, did I pronounce it right this time, Rabbi?
Yes, you did. Congratulations.
For stepping up his post on Instagram. I saw it today. I don't remember exactly when he did post it. He took his time with waiting with how he wanted to choose his words properly. And he calmly conveyed, for the most part, what I just conveyed. And I will say this to you, DeSean, and to a lesser extent, you too, Jax. Take Julian up on his deal. Go visit the Holocaust Museum in D.C. with him. And then take him to the African American Cultural Museum. Y'all need to see the similarities between our two cultures, because it's kind of scary how close they are. If you want people like Julian Edelman and other white people, especially Jewish people, to walk arm in arm with you, you can't go around saying things like that. I'm sorry, that's just beyond stupid and beyond offensive. I just hope you guys learn from it, because you now put the shoe on the other foot. I'm guessing it don't fit that well. At least I hope not.
Yeah, and you mentioned Steven Jackson. The only thing I can say to him is it's kind of self-sabotaging. I mean, he's been at the forefront of everything that's been going on as far as speaking up about racial injustice. Obviously, George Floyd was a close friend of his. But I mean, to double down on what DeSean Jackson said, just kind of it kind of literally takes away from, to some extent, to what you've been fighting for and what you've been speaking on for the last several weeks. And like I said, and Julian Edelman, like I said, great credit to him and saying that, you know what, this is a teachable moment. And I think it is without question. I mean, I have friends, obviously, Jay, of course, you, but I've had several friends who are Jewish as well. And one, I remember him telling me that he got some hate emails on social media that was anti-Semitic. You know, and the similarities about, you know, both cultures are pretty striking. You know, and like I said, I tell people all the time, it's a small world. You'd be surprised if you sit down and have a thorough conversation with someone how much you can figure out. And in case of DeSean Jackson, and I like DeSean Jackson, he's a great football player, but you know, this is definitely not one of his better moments. And I always took him as maybe he's a semi-intelligent guy. In this case, not first of all, number one, he quoted Adolf Hitler, which is like, really? Are you kidding me? Number two, we find out that it wasn't even something he said. So not only did you make yourself look bad, you make yourself look more foolish because you took a quote that wasn't even a real quote and reposted it. And basically, and somebody need to tell DeSean Jackson, if you will post something, it basically means you're co-signing on it. That's pretty much how social media works. You know what? He right now, DeSean Jackson really does need to take a step back. But my question is to the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is the quagmire they created themselves for Riley Cooper several years ago, is that, well, you didn't cut Riley Cooper for saying a racial slur. Now what do you do with DeSean Jackson? I mean, do you cut him because now that's going to bring back the Riley Cooper situation in a nutshell, because it's like, well, you got what you did with one situation and not the other. So DeSean Jackson, he's put the team in a really bad in a sticky situation, because now they're kind of damn they do, damn if they don't at this moment. Even though they've come down and definitely condemned his comments.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll mention before we quickly move on, since we got a lot more to talk about, especially not even list-wise, is the fact that DeSean Jackson didn't really perform last year. So, like Riley Cooper, you have a case for cutting him entirely. Again, I've always said this, and it's very simple. Every athlete should hire a PR person to literally stay with them 24/7, or marry a PR person to stay with her 24/7, because you can't do anything like this.
Yeah, Herman ever said it best. If you ever think about it, don't press send.
Yeah. Yes, as Herman Edwards, the great Herman Edwards, once taught us, don't press send.
There you go.
And that
Herman's words, wise no matter what time of day, what time of year, doesn't matter. Those words are timeless, and everybody who puts their foot in their mouths like he did, like DeSean did, and like Steven did, they need to start channeling their inner Herm, man. You need to start channeling your inner Herm.
Yeah, but of course they need to be heard, so why not? Anyway, moving on, speaking of people who say something stupid, let's talk about Daniel Snyder and the Redskins. Who finally, after all of these years about is the Redskins an offensive term, guess what got them to start thinking about it? Pressure from sponsors. It started with FedEx basically saying, we want you to change the name, I believe last Monday.
Yep.
Now it's gotten towards everywhere. The Redskins have decided they're taking a review of their name. The Indians have now done it with their name in baseball. We are really heading towards a cultural breakthrough here.
Yeah.
Let's get some thoughts, starting with Anthony, with the Redskins controversy, so to speak.
You know what? I've always said this. The best way to hold a billionaire is basically holding his pockets. You know, and this is clearly a business move, not to lose any more money, because Daniel Snyder's been on for years about how he wasn't going to change the logo, change the team name, the team's logo. And he said it for several years. He's doubled down on it. But now when you got sponsors, pulling advertisements off like FedEx or even like places like Amazon and Walmart and Target pulling Washington Redskins merchandise off their websites. Now you're speaking Daniel Snyder's language, because, like I said, people like Daniel Snyder, they really all he care about is the bottom line. And obviously, if you heard his bottom line, he'll listen. And the Redskins' name has been a long time coming and basically long overdue. The Indians, it's been a little more progressive in this situation. You think about a few years ago, getting rid of Chief Wahoo permanently as a logo and as an official mascot. The irony is that Major League the movie is actually playing in the background here, so there's some irony to that. But but both, a lot of people don't realize that both names were. The Redskins is actually a racial slur. The Chief Wahoo logo was actually created as a cartoon that made fun of a Native American player back in the day. So a lot of people don't really know the history behind the names and the logos. They just know that it's affiliated to a team and that a particular city. So like I said, these are things that have just been long overdue. It's been a long time coming. Native Americans have been protesting these names for years to have it changed. But I guess it's a better late than never situation. But in the case of Daniel Snyder, it's like it took you to lose a couple $1 million to finally come around to what everybody else was trying to tell you, that maybe changing the name would be a good idea. I mean, like I said, the only language that billionaires speak is money. And now when you're threatening to take money out of his pockets, now he's willing to listen.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, Anthony. It's funny, guys. I have the times they truly may be changing. I've always wondered what it would take for Daniel Snyder to really entertain changing the team's name from the racially insensitive slur it is to something that doesn't denigrate Native Americans. And now we know, right? It takes a pandemic, rampant social justice protests across the country, and FedEx, as you said, Anthony, who owned the naming rights to the team's home, the former Jack Kent Cooke Stadium.
By the way, but mostly FedEx, though. It's nothing else but FedEx.
Well, here, and the thing behind it that I found out, which was interesting, their CEO is a minority owner of the team. He's like third down on the website from on the corporate side, to speak out and ask for a change, followed by guys that, and then you have Nike piling on, who's their official uniform provider, who will not stock their merchandise until this is done, and Pepsi, the team's official beverage vendor. Doesn't get much bigger than that when you talk about corporate sponsors coming at you. And let's not forget, guys, that Muriel Bowser, who's the mayor of D.C., flatly stated the team would not get a new stadium deal in D.C. on the old RFK site, which she had previously been championing, without them changing their name. Think about this, guys. It may be tangential, but I think it still plays a part in terms of all of the elements involved in this storm. Events DC, which has jurisdiction at the RFK site, they removed the statue of former owner George Preston Marshall, and they are promising to scrub any mentions or likenesses of him from the team's website and stadium. Why? Because under his rule, the team was the last in the NFL to integrate in 1962, after years of resistance by Marshall. And I guess Snyder finally backed down from his intractable 2013, "We will never change the name. It's that simple. Never. You can use caps" stance. And here's what I don't get, guys. NFL teams change their name all the time, most often due to a change of city. And other than the Browns, that became the Ravens, the team keeps their history. So Snyder can keep the colors and the history, but the name and the logo need to go forthwith. You're not losing your history by changing your team's name. People are attached to a franchise, not to a freaking set of colors at the end of the day. As for Cleveland, while they haven't gotten as much flack through the years as Washington, the fact that unbidden in this instance, they're even willing to entertain this change, to me is a positive thing. And it seems as though the current climate in the country, and I guess obviously the full court press going on in D.C., is what has the team, considering making this change more serious than they ever have, according to club sources. And they do plan to consult with the Native American community, fans, players, alumni, and internal staff for making a decision. here's the thing with Cleveland, guys. You talk about teams that changed their name. Cleveland was a charter member of the American League, one of 8 teams to break ground with the AL in 1901. The team initially was called the Bluebirds, often shortened to the Blues, then the Broncos, and then the Naps, before officially becoming the Indians in 1915. So another name change, not a big deal. And they've pretty much done away with images and logos and the like. Anthony, you mentioned probably quite correctly, Chief Wahoo, that basically that are Native American based. So it seems like they're already starting down that path. And guys, I got to agree with this, with this movement here. It's time for sports to stop portraying Native Americans in a derogatory manner. Obviously, the Redskins are the worst offender, but it's going to be interesting to see if this sparks any statements or movement or changes from the Kansas City Chiefs, the Florida State Seminoles, or even the Atlanta Braves, who have not, gone as far as saying they're going to entertain changing their name, but they are going to stop the chop.
Yeah, and yes, please stop the chop. It's not even offensive. It's just annoying to me in every way, shape, or form. Again, as I mentioned to you, and I commented just a moment ago, social unrest, nope. Anything, pandemic, nope. Money, yes. That's the only reason why the Redskins are doing this. Daniel Snyder is as steadfast of an owner next to the one who's also in his division named Jerry that will not do anything that the public wants because he's all steadfast in his ways. This is a shock for him to even entertain this. But again, it's all about the money and the money only. I'm a little surprised that they're not going to keep the Redskin logo. And I thought the easiest name that I had heard was the Washington Warriors. But
the one I like, the Athletic actually ran a poll. One of the choices is the one I picked was the Washington Redhawks, because it would kind of allow them to easily morph the logo. I'm just saying, and still keep the colors.
Yeah, I think when you do this, though, I think it's time for a complete reset, especially because of the fact that you might have a season to think about this, because who the hell knows what happened in the NFL in 2020. It's a different world out there, and as we just mentioned, the Native American names are kind of on the chopping block, so to speak. No pun intended for Braves fans, but it's a brave new world in sports when we just start thinking everything in terms of how does this look, and it's actually more refreshing to see almost.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, you go back to Abe Pollin, who was the late Abe Pollin, who was a longtime owner of Washington's NBA franchise. When DC and the surrounding area became the murder capital of the world, he decided it was time for the team to no longer be called the Bullets, and he changed them. He changed the name to what it is now, and I got to, he caught some flack for it, but in retrospect, the man was a pioneer. He was a trailblazer.
Yeah, and the Bullets,
right thing for.
And the Bullets had a history. They wanted an NBA title as the Bullets. So it's going to be a little more Redskins, though. They have been a mediocre franchise, but they do have 3 Super Bowls to their name, thanks to Joe Gibbs and company.
Yep.
All right, moving on. We will have sports to talk about next week. We will start with our MLB preview show and on next week on July 16th, and an NBA preview show on July 23rd. Given the fact that they will still possibly have a season when we get to that point, hopefully. But in lieu of that, we have one final list for you this week. We talked about the Big Four, the non-Big Four athletes last week, and we specifically excluded Olympics because we're going to talk specifically Olympics tonight. These are athletes, winter or summer games, male or female, who we know based on their Olympic accomplishments. We will each pick 3. We will go in order this week. Anthony will be first in all segments. Jay will be second. I will be third. I regretted that decision immediately, and we'll tell you why in just a little bit. But Anthony, you have first up, and I think you mentioned her last week, so this is not a big surprise.
Yeah, before we move on, I went back to work this week. If the Nets had called me maybe a few days earlier, I'd be in Orlando on a bubble right now.
Jamal Crawford is in.
Anybody that can get right now.
Michael Beasley is in. I should be in if that's the case.
Hey.
Yeah, but Only if you can hit at least 37.5% from beyond the arc, Rabbi.
It's 2020 NBA. I could do it.
That's higher than Kyrie Irving. You're already on a good start.
Oh, God. Let's
all right. Okay. All right. I mentioned that last week. My first pick is obviously Simone Biles. And you think about her resume, a combined total 30 Olympic and World Championship medals. She's arguably perhaps the most decorative American gymnast in the world. I mean, American gymnast of all time. In 2016, the Olympics, obviously, she won gold medals in all around vault and the floor. She won bronze in the balance beam, and gold as part of the final five, if you want to call it there. But she's also a 5-time world all-around champion, 5-time world floor exercise champion, 3-time world balance beam champion, 2-time world vault champion, a 6-time United States national all-around champion. Additionally, she's a silver medalist 3 times in worlds. She's actually at the most world medals with 25. And also, when you have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 gymnastic moves named after you, that says a heck of a lot about how good you are, but how dominant you are as a gymnast. And Simone Biles has been just that. Mary Lou Retton, who a lot of us has grown up knowing as one of the greatest athletes in the world, basically called her the greatest gymnast ever. I mean, that by itself, like Simone Biles, and this is just like she's still young. She's like beginning right now. And it's interesting to see what she'll be able to do next year, and in Japan, and obviously in next year's Olympics. I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks of this pandemic. We're not able to see these great Olympic athletes like Simone Biles take to it this summer, but no, there's always next year. But Simone Biles is definitely my number 1 pick on this list.
Yeah, hey, I can't fault that. I mean, as far as number 1 picks go, kind of a no-brainer. As much as, U.S. gymnastics, especially on the female side, and kind of like U.S. soccer, the U.S. women's gymnastics team has far and away outshone the U.S. men's, especially at the Olympic level. But as much as that we've seen those teams grow, I have never seen an Olympic gymnast on the women's side, period, forget about women's or men's, as ridiculously and so far and above everyone else in the sport. It's insane. You know the old saying, she's playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. That's kind of what it is in terms of her talent level. I mean, Anthony, you called it. I mean, 4 moves that are named after her. She's the most dominant, most prodigious, most amazing gymnast I have ever seen in all the years I've been following, the U.S. Olympic team, especially at the Olympics. It is amazing to watch her do what she does. You're just in awe of her ability to, it seems like, hang in the air longer than a woman that size should be able to do and stick landings. It's just, she's amazing to watch, and she's fun to watch. And I'm glad we're going to get to see her at least one more time, even if it's been put off a year. Yeah,
and one of the interesting things is she really gets affected by this year put off, because the difference between a 23-year-old and a 24-year-old in gymnastics is a little bit. But yeah. Simone is still easily the best female athlete in the world in any sport, let alone gymnastics. There is an incomplete resume, obviously, because she's only done 1 Olympics, but we've never really seen any of these Olympians do as much dominance as they can in 2 Olympics, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we're going to see with Simone Biles in 2020, 2021. If Japan may have anything to say about it, it might even be 2022. That's not. But Simone Biles is one of the most gifted female Olympians that we've ever seen, and everything she does is so easy. She helped the U.S. medal in every female gymnastics event last year, which is a first, and could have easily won in every discipline that she was in. She got 4 golds and a bronze.
Yeah,
impressive. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it amazes me because how dominant she is, but look who her teammates was. Gabby Douglas, Lori Hernandez, and Ali Raisman. I mean, those are exactly, those are three very decorative gymnasts in their own right. But Biles was just seemingly on like another plateau. It was just unbelievable. And some of the moves she does are so difficult to such a degree that they basically named them after her. I mean, that's incredible.
And she is the most decorated gymnast of all time when you count world championships, which is insane. The fact that she's already won 5 of them. Every event that she gets, every world championship that she goes in, she wins. It's just that plain simple.
Yep.
There's a pretty obvious pick for number 2, and I didn't get it. And I'm not, commiserating or anything. Jay got it, and go ahead.
I called this out the minute you put this in. You told me we were doing this.
I'm not. I'm just commiserating to everybody. Go ahead. Give us your pick.
Michael Phelps. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, the biggest individual sport, and I clarified that because gymnastics is both individual and team. To me, the biggest individual sport in the summer games is swimming. And for me, no one owned the pool much like Michael Phelps. 28 medals total, 23 gold, 3 silver, 2 bronze. Make him the most decorated Olympian of all time. His 8 golds at the 08 Summer Olympics broke the previous record of 7 set by Mark Spitz back at the 72 Summer Games. Phelps also holds the all-time records for most Olympic gold medals in individual events, and the most total Olympic medals in individual events. He set 39 world records over the course of his career, 29 individual, 10 relay. And as of a year ago, he still held 4 of them. The 400-meter individual medley, the 4x100-meter freestyle relay, which were set at the 08 Summer Games in Beijing, and the 4x200 freestyle relay and the 4x100 medley relay, which were set at the 09 FINA World Championships in Rome. He's earned the World Swimmer of the Year award 8 times, the American Swimmer of the Year award 11 times, and the FINA Swimmer of the Year award in 2012 and 2016. Phelps also earned Sports Illustrated's Sportsman of the Year award due to his unprecedented Olympic success in the 08 Games. But here's the other thing that stood out for me regarding Michael Phelps is how open he has been talking about his mental health issues. He started right before the 2016 Summer Games in Rio, and he's been upfront with it ever since. As he said in an ESPN.com article back in May, quote, "It wasn't easy to admit I wasn't perfect, but opening up took a huge weight off my back. It made my life easier," end quote. In that same article, he also said that, so many of the post-Rio interviews he did resulted in the same storyline. Michael Phelps opened up about depression. He went into a treatment program, won gold in his last Olympics, and now is all better. As Phelps wishes that were the truth. He wishes it was that easy. He went into a tailspin in 2014 and ended with a DUI arrest in September, which is finally what prompted him to get help and finally open up about all the things he was going through. Guys, if he doesn't open himself up and accept the help, he's probably not the husband and father he is today, nor is he comfortable enough. Forget about being the Olympic athlete, that we saw in 2016. Nor is he, and he's probably also not comfortable enough to be one of the sports world's faces, along with Kevin Love, of mental health awareness and living with mental health issues, and removing that stigma. When he finally retired for good on August 12th of 2016, he'd won more medals than 161 countries. Yes, I said 161. As far as I'm concerned, he's the greatest swimmer of all time, but his true legacy may end up being to help remove that stigma that is all too often attached to people who live with mental health issues every day.
I remember Sports Illustrated's the cover where it was basically like almost like when Mark Spitz did with the 7 gold medals.
Replication.
It was an absolute replica of it, but it was Michael Phelps with the 8. His 2008 Summer Games, which is basically historic because, and you think about one of the races that that the United States themselves, that came very close, and it was a great comeback. You understand the 2008 Olympics were in Beijing, so the time difference to stay up 2 a.m. to watch live swimming because Michael Phelps was involved. You can imagine that how much he really brought a lot of people's attention to the sport, particularly because of his pursuit of gold medal, unprecedented amount of gold medals that he won in every event that he participated in. But you also said too, his contributions outside of swimming. It's funny he named Michael Jordan as an inspiration growing up. But obviously he's been very open about depression and mental illness, and I feel like I always feel like some of the best things you could possibly do is being able to confront yourself, your own demons, your own personal issues, before you could be able to kind of take on something else. So like you always say, and I've struggled in the past with mental illness as well. So I can kind of speak from experience. It's like your toughest enemy is really the person you want to see in the mirror every day for the rest of your life. And when you're able to maybe overcome that, or at least be able to come to peace of what's going on, you're kind of able to move forward. I felt like Phelps was kind of able to do that. It was a big difference between Michael Phelps in 2012 and 2016, when he looked a little more relaxed, a little more focused, a little more rejuvenated. It was like a night and day. Like he's been obviously he's a family man. He's done a lot of philanthropy as well. Michael Phelps is like you don't think swimming without Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is the first name that comes to your mind.
Yep.
I want to mention a couple of things. We've all talked about 2004, 2008, and 2012. Remember, he started as a 15-year-old in 2000. Didn't really do well because obviously he couldn't really qualify for anything, but just the springboard to what he did when he was 19 in 2004 and when he was 23 in 2008. And then let's fast forward to 2016 when he's a 31-year-old swimmer. I don't know if Jay mentioned he was the oldest male swimming champion ever. Nobody has ever mentioned it. No one has ever mentioned that before. And most importantly, we got the best meme that we've ever seen at the Olympics with the Michael Phelps face back before he was, I think his rival Chad Lacrosse was shadowboxing, and it was pretty much the definition of Michael Phelps is not impressed.
We all know.
Michael Phelps is by far one of the greatest Olympians of all time, one of the most successful Olympians of all time, and I don't know how male swimming is going to look in 2021, but it's going to look a little bit naked, so to speak, without Michael Phelps there. He has been a stalwart for this sport for almost 2 decades, which is something you can almost never say with any Olympian whatsoever. And he is a great model for the sport. Despite the ups and downs, I think Michael Phelps is really somebody that you can't tell the history of the U.S. Olympics without.
No.
Okay. So my first pick, and we're going to go away from America for a second and talk about who I think is the most – we mentioned Michael Phelps is one of the greatest athletes. I'm going to talk about one of the most dominant athletes in Olympic history. Born in Sherwood, Jamaica, and only 33 years old, and a new daddy this very week. My first pick is Usain Bolt. He is an 8-time Olympic gold medalist. Oh, God. You two should not do it. You two stay in your seats, please, and don't do any more Usain Bolt stuff for the rest of the show. All I ask. All right. Bolt is the only sprinter to win 100-meter and 200-meter titles at 3 consecutive Olympics, and also won 2 4x100 relay gold medals. Gained worldwide fame, obviously, for his double sprint victory and world record times in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and is the first person to hold both records since fully automatic time, legitimately, fully automatic time became mandatory. He did the double for the very first time in 2008, and the man at that time who held the 200 and 400 records, and Michael Johnson, said Bolt would have no pressure on doing the double. He was right. The 2 world records, a 9.69 in the 100 and 19.3 in the 200, are 2 numbers that you'll really never forget in history. And in 2008, Bolt became the first ever athlete to set 3 world records in one Olympics. Bolt would do this again in 2012, and though he only went 19.32, so disappointing in the 200. He blistered the 100 with a 9.63, and that's the only person to ever defend the 100 and 200 meter titles. Jacques Rouge, the International Olympic Committee president, initially stated that Bolt was not yet a legend and would not deserve such acclaim until the end of his career. Are you kidding me? But then later called him the best Olympic swimmer of all time. He is the highest earning track and field athlete in history. And I mentioned again, I'm going to mention everyone's swan song because it's very impressive with my 3 picks. 2016, comes back in the last 50 meters, wins the 100 meters, and then grimaces and crosses the line in a slow 19.78 to win the 200 meters. And he is somebody who has asked when asked what he wanted to do in the Olympics, he said, I want to be one of the greats like Muhammad Ali and Pele. And he certainly has. He is legendary. And Michael Phelps only tops him in this one stat. Bolt holds the Guinness World Record, holds 19 Guinness World Records for an Olympian. Usain Bolt has done everything. And again, may I mention to you, he is retired and is younger than all of us, making us all feel like we need more accomplishment in our lives.
Rabbi, the fact that you went with him, I told you when you and I were doing our preliminary get-together to kind of talk the show out in terms of details, he was on my short list. And the fact that you made him your number 1 pick is the reason I did not even entertain the thought of taking Michael Johnson. Everybody, we were all so amazed at what Johnson did during his time, with the gold Nikes and, blowing the records in the 100 and 200 out of the water. We had never seen that. To watch Bolt come up and make it look easy, knocking off Michael Johnson's records. Michael Johnson was obviously no slouch when he was, setting up these records and making us all go, wow. But Johnson never made it look easy. You saw the obvious skill and you saw the obvious speed, but Bolt had that, and Bolt looked like everyone else was running, was like doing the Baywatch running compared to him. It was almost hilarious. I know he got flack for basically, kind of dancing across the finish line in that one heat. But I'm like, at that point, you don't have anything else to prove. Have a little fun with it. And we can say this. Bolt seemed to have fun with it. Michael Johnson embraced the victories. I just don't know if he got as much joy out of it, at least visible to us as viewers, as it seemed Bolt. Bolt just exuded joy. He just loved it. To us, the smile was just, yeah, I'm having the best time in the world. Oh, and I'm winning and setting records? Bonus. He was you talk about how you don't know where U.S. swimming goes, or even U.S. swimming goes now that Phelps is retired. I don't know where track and field period goes without Usain Bolt. So you know what? Props. That's great pick.
There was a meme a couple of years ago of Usain Bolt in the middle of a race where it like he's looking back and smiling, and there's competition like about 6-7 feet away. They're not even close, but it just tells you like how dominant Usain Bolt was whenever he stepped on a track, and how very much his competition didn't even measure up. I gotta think about it. I know Rabbi gave me a little flack for hitting a pose, but look, Usain Bolt's little victory pose is a bit of a cultural phenomenon. The United States women's basketball team basically posed with the gold medals in 2008 with the same move. So trust me, it's universal. I did it one time for the culture, and because it demands of it. Okay, but yeah, Usain Bolt. Look, if it hadn't been Simone Biles, he'd probably been my number 1. He'd definitely been a number 2, but he's definitely was on all of our short list of greatest athletes of all time. But you think about this, Usain Bolt also played a little soccer as well. He's got it's kind of maybe I don't call him a two-sport athlete, but he was semi good in that as well. But we all know his bread and butter is track and field without question. when you're 33 and you have this many accomplishments, I don't know what else you can possibly say about someone. I mean, that Usain Bolt literally, he literally had fun, and he embraced the moment, but he had fun while doing it. I think that kind of set him apart. And Michael Johnson, his performance in 1996 in Atlanta was out of this world. But to see like Bolt, kind of it's like a generational talent. You know, my next pick kind of falls into that category. But Usain Bolt, like I said, he's a clear number one pick, and I wouldn't disagree with Rabbi at all in this pick.
No, I mean, each of our three picks is the singular and probably the first name that pops into your head when you mention the Olympic discipline that they dominated for their career.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll just quickly mention about Usain Bolt is kind of like Simone Biles. I think he was born to do this. And again, he played football until just this past January of 2019. His sporting career is over, but he already has one of the most legendary performance highlight reels of anybody in the Olympic Games history. All right, Anthony, you kind of mentioned how Usain Bolt goes into your second pick. What is it?
My second pick is actually Carl Lewis, and I talked about Usain Bolt being kind of a generational talent, and just so happened Carl Lewis was kind of before Michael Johnson, and definitely before Usain Bolt. They got Carl Lewis, a 9-time Olympic gold medalist, silver medalist as well, 10-time world champion, including 8 gold medals. His career spanned from 1979 to 1996. One of 3 Olympic athletes who won a gold medal in the same individual event in 4 consecutive Olympic Games. He set world records in the 100-meter 4x100, the 4x200-meter relay, something I actually ran like maybe a lifetime ago, like in junior high school. His world record in the indoor long jump stood for a long time. Actually, it's still now since 1984. 65 consecutive victories in the long jump, achieved over a span of 10 years. But when you think of Carl Lewis, you think of his 1984 performance in Los Angeles and how he pretty much could have matched Jesse Owens. He pretty much matched Jesse Owens as far as Olympic medals. He entered 4 events and won each of them. A la Jesse Owens in 1936. He won the 4th one by 4x100 relay. Anchored the final leg of the race. He broke the tape with a time of 37.83 seconds, which set a world record. 1988, he actually gets a gold medal, but not exactly because he won, because his rival at the time, Ben Johnson, was actually tested positive for steroids.
Yeah.
Had a forfeit the gold medal. Carl Lewis, obviously being second, gets his gold medal. 1992, he won a couple more in Barcelona, and obviously ended his career there at that point. But when you think about Carl Lewis, you think about he had a lot of bravado. I mean, we think about Usain Bolt, who had fun and was kind of childlike. Michael Johnson was more business approach.
Business-like.
Carl Lewis literally went into each event feeling like he was the best without question, and had no problem letting you know about it.
Nope.
Now, acting career aside, we're not going to get into that part.
No.
Or national anthem singing, because we
Don't
definitely
like
not going to
thunder on that one. I was going to lead my time with that one, Ann.
I'm going to leave that part out too. But without question, you think of Carl Lewis, he's one of the most consecutive track and field athletes of all time. But he didn't have. But here's the thing too. I think a lot of the bravado that he ensued brought a little backlash. He didn't get the endorsement deals that say Michael Phelps or Usain Bolt, or even Michael Johnson or Simone Biles got during his career. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that maybe his swagger was at a time where it wasn't accustomed to seeing athletes be so outgoing about their confidence. But there's no question but he was able to, over a near 30-year career, what he was able to achieve. I mean, you know, he could be a really big hater. You can never take that away.
No, you know, I mean, you talk about, you know, the outsized personality. I mean, his accomplishments, you know, when you run the numbers, which you did, you know, so well, you know, those go without saying. I mean, those are in the books, and they stamp him as one of the greatest Olympians of all time and very worthy of being on this list. But 1984 was a very big deal for the Olympics in general and for the United States specifically. You guys remember, we boycotted the 1980 Summer Games because of the Iran hostage situation. So to not only have missed the previous one, but now to have this one in our own backyard after, you know, 1980 is a big deal. There was a lot of pressure on, you know, U.S. Olympic athletes. And to say that Carl Lewis became the personality of those games is not an understatement. And, you know, was he brash? Yeah. Was he Deion Sanders-like in terms of, you know, personality, attitude, trash talk? I am the man and I'm going to let everyone know it. You know, yeah. And was it potentially in a period where that type of swagger was not as universally, you know, accepted as it is now? Did that, you know, hurt him in terms of endorsements? Maybe. But in terms of what that man accomplished in multiple disciplines in one of the most important Olympic Games in U.S. history cannot be understated. And you know what? Well deserving of being on this list, Rabbi.
Yeah, and some interesting moments of Carl Lewis's attitude. It stems from him not trying to even come close to doing Bob Beeman's legendary long jump record of 8.9, basically fouling the next 4 times because he didn't want to do it. Edwin Moses, who is a very prominent hurdler back in the day, had said about him, "A little humility is in order. That's what Carl lacks."
Yeah.
You know what? I actually say brashness at that time is welcome, because you need somebody who can stir up the pot. Imagine Carl Lewis in the world of Twitter. He would have been exploded Twitter.
Oh, man.
Exploded Twitter. The national anthem it's being played on YouTube. A bunch of times nowadays. So Carl Lewis would have been the perfect social media athlete. And again, his talent is just so much, that I think he is by far. I was going to pick him next if we were to do this in snake draft style, but Anthony beat me to the punch. One interesting fact about Carl Lewis, which I just found from his Wikipedia page, so I will repeat this back to you. Did you know he was drafted in both the NBA and NFL?
I did not know.
He never played a moment of college basketball. He never played a moment of college football. He was drafted by the Chicago Bulls in the 1984 NBA draft, where they had like a ton of picks. He was the 208th overall pick. And he was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys as a wide receiver in the 12th round. Obviously, he never played the NBA or the NFL, but the fact that people thought he could easily be in either of those sports thanks to his God-given ability is something that we should all, you know, take note of in terms of how dominant he was in this sport.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have a Winter Olympic athlete on the list. Jay, pick number 2.
Yeah, you know, I was kicking around a lot of guys on my short list, and I realized we did not have enough Winter Olympians on this list. And the guy I'm going with here is pretty much a legend in his discipline. I'm talking about, you know, speed skater Eric Heiden. I mean, these days he's Eric Heiden, MD, orthopedic surgeon. But at the 1980 Winter Olympics at Lake Placid, he won an unprecedented 5 individual gold medals. And if it wasn't for the miracle on ice that the U.S. men's hockey team pulled off, Heiden would have been the story of the games. I mean, think about this, guys. Heiden was in the 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, 5,000 and 10,000 meter events, becoming the first to win all 5 speed skating events in one Olympiad. He set 4 Olympic records and 1 world record that was in the 10,000. The men's ice hockey team was the only other American gold at the 1980 games. Think about that. He won more gold medals than all of the other nations competing, except for the Soviet Union, which won 10, and East Germany, back when there was an East and a West Germany, they won 9. But what most people don't know is that, this should not really have been considered much of a fluke or out of left field. He won at Worlds 77, 78, and 79. So it shouldn't have been as unexpected, but I mean, speed skating is not something that is, widely followed by United States. So it probably seemed more of an anomaly than it actually was in that, discipline. I mean, Hayden and the hockey team actually have an interesting connection at those Lake Placid games. The night before his 5th victory, he stayed up late cheering the U.S. men's ice hockey team on as they defeated the Soviet Union in that massive upset. He overslept the next day and rushed to the rink for his race after just eating a few slices of bread for breakfast. How crazy is that? I mean, the man is an icon in the community. Few speed skaters have won competitions in both sprint and long distance events. He's the only athlete in the history of speed skating to have won all 5 events in a single Olympic, as I said. He's also the only one to have won a gold medal in all the events. He was ranked number 46 in ESPN's Sports Century 50 Greatest Athletes of the 20th Century in 1999, the only speed skater to make the list. In 2000, a Dutch newspaper called him the greatest skater ever. To this day, no other athlete has won 5 gold medals at the Winter Games in any sport. Before Hayden, no other athlete in Olympic history had ever won 5 individual gold medals. He is considered one, if not the greatest speed skater of all time, and the doc gets my vote.
He mentioned, 1980, if it's not for the American Ice hockey team, Eric Hayden is probably the most talked about athlete coming out of Lake Placid, without question.
Yeah.
But I just, I just think of it like, for as dominant as he was, it was like, well, the American Ice is like, they beat the mighty Soviet Union. I mean, you can't, and it's kind of hard to overshadow that, but his individual accomplishment, 5 gold medals. I mean, that's literally more than 95% of the countries that were participating in Lake Placid. And also, he's an MD. I mean, that's another thing too. Like, he's an orthopedic surgeon. He's in the University of Wisconsin. He graduated from he went there as an undergrad. He's one of Wisconsin's greatest athletes. I mean, if you want to go that far. But yeah, I mean, Eric Hayden, we don't really talk much about speed skating, not even on the show when we do our shows on the Winter Olympics. A couple of years ago, I talked about ice hockey, and
hasn't been anybody worth talking about since.
Yeah, but you know what? We gotta pass.
No disrespect to oh no.
Oh, it's no.
No disrespect to him.
No. I mean, we'll probably pass it on to Sean Roman the next time we're actually convening in a studio. Well, Winter Olympics show, but yeah, we kind of overlook speed skating, and it's hard to believe. It's hard to not consider Eric Hayden as arguably the greatest speed skater of all time.
Mm-hmm. The fact that he did all of this when he was 21 years old and had his peak when he was 21 years old.
You're making us feel old, Rabbi.
There's gonna be a lot of mentioning of how young these people are tonight. A couple of facts. Number 1, let's get the medical career kind of closed off. He was a team physician for the Sacramento Kings and Sacramento Monarchs in the 2000s. And number 2, did you know he was a world-class cyclist as well?
Yeah, I had a feeling you would find this tidbit, so I deliberately didn't mention it so you could. Now, come on, lay out the full part of that little tidbit.
Yeah, he was one of the first crossover athletes ever going from speed skating to cycling. He won a few American professional races, did participate in the 86 Tour de France. He didn't finish the race and only suffered a concussion 5 days from the finish. But he's in the United States Bicycling Hall of Fame. How amazing is that? And again, the man did all of his damage in the Olympic Games when he was 21. I don't think we've ever seen a man, unlike most of our picks, which are guys who have had like a great career or a great body of work over 3 or 4 Olympics. This guy dominated in 1, and easily, again, as we're not going to beat to death, if it weren't for the 1988 U.S. hockey team, would easily have been the story of the United States. A little bit of overshadowing there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pick number 2 for myself. We're going to stay in the world of track and field. It has, I believe, 3 people on this list, and it's well-deserved. It is the marquee event of the Summer Olympics. It usually is the thing you see in the second week. Mm-hmm. My pick is going to be Jackie Joyner-Kersee. I was between Kersee and Flojo for this pick, but Jackie Joyner-Kersee has a huge repertoire of 4 Olympics as well. At the age of 22, Kersee finished second in the heptathlon in 1984. She was favored, so that was a little bit of disappointment. Let's go back to when she was a teen. She won the junior pentathlon championships 4 years in a row. He had widespread honors in various sports like track, basketball, and volleyball. She was a basketball and track and field star, dominated during her junior year. And then the 1988 Summer Olympics happened when she earned gold medals in both the heptathlon and the long jump. She is the still standing heptathlon world record holder with 7,291 points. And if you know what that means, congratulations. I heard that's a lot. And 5 days later, Jackie Joyner-Kersee won her second gold medal, leaping to an Olympic record 7.4 meters in the long jump. She was the first American woman to earn a gold medal in the long jump, as well as the first American woman to earn a gold medal in the heptathlon. She got a bronze in the long jump and a gold again in the heptathlon in 1992. Then let's mention the 96 Olympic Games. She suffered an injury to her right hamstring. She tried to do the heptathlon. Unfortunately, she couldn't. The pain was unbearable after the 100-meter hurdles, and she withdrew. Then she competed in the long jump, was 6th in the final with 1 jump remaining, has a huge long jump of 7 meters, which is 22 feet, 11 and a half inches for you in America, because I know that's all you care about with all the feet and inches. The Atlantic Olympic, she won the bronze, and that would be the last Olympics and the last medal for a long competitive career. She tried in 2000 to compete again, but did not qualify. Jackie Joyner-Kersee holds the world record in the heptathlon, along with the top 6 all-time best results of her long jump record. She is a world-class athlete of the 100-meter hurdles and the 200 meters, and she is in the top 60 all-time records in those events. Jackie Joyner-Kersee could do everything and is probably considered by myself, at least in the modern era, Wilma Rudolph notwithstanding, the best female track and field athlete of all time. A lot of people should strive to do what Jackie Joyner-Kersee did. She was named the greatest female athlete of the 20th century by Sports Illustrated for Women in 1999. She is a role model for the track and field community.
Yeah, I mean, Rabbi, I mean, you ran down, the litany, and it is a laundry list of medals in various disciplines. The heptathlon being sort of the women's version of the decathlon, which is only run by the men. The heptathlon is run by the women. So you have to be very good at multiple disciplines in order to score well. And yes, 7,000 points is
I've heard 7,000 points is a good number. That's what the kids tell me.
Her ability to perform for no pun intended, Olympian levels, and by that I mean the level of the Greek gods on Mount Olympus, at levels across multiple Olympics. She was fascinating to watch. It got to a point where you just expected greatness every time she stepped onto the track, the field, anywhere she was. You just expected it because she had done it time and time again. It was amazing, to watch her do her thing. And to me, I agree with you, Rabbi. To me, as far as I'm concerned, and all due respect to Wilma Rudolph, who was the trailblazer and is still an icon.
And to Flojo.
Jackie Joyner-Kersee, to me, is the greatest women's track and field athlete ever, in my book.
You know what's funny? Because as a kid, I remember the first time I was actually had exposure of who Jackie Joyner-Kersee was, and she was on the front of a cereal box. This was it was a great honor if you was an Olympian, and especially a successful one, to be on the front of Wheaties, of a Wheaties box. And she was on the box cover more than once, a couple of times actually. You think about the gold medals that she won in the Olympics. She was dominating the Goodwood Games as well, World Championships also. But not to mention, she's an athlete that overcame a very severe case of asthma. So to be able to overcome that and to be as dominant as she was, not to mention she had that $1 million smile and that kind of just brought attention and the endorsement deals as well. She was literally, I guess to my generation, and I guess rabbis as well, she was really that very first dominant female athlete that was on an international stage that we kind of all got exposed to. And like I said, to me, like Joanna Cosi was really like that first female athlete that, okay, when in my case, like Black History Month came around and they had to pick, you pick somebody you wrote about. That was the athlete I was going to write about, because not only what she did for African Americans, but also as a woman athlete as well. So I mean, to be able to take it upon that level, and also to kind of live up to the name Jackie Kennedy, because that's what she was named after, it speaks volumes, to what her God-given talents was able to bring to the international stage.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact, before we get to our honorable mention and our final round of picks, this list has more women than it does men, I just realized, including all of our final honorable mention picks.
And who won the world?
Yeah, yeah.
Girls. Reference.
Yeah, yes, girls. So there is a 2-for-1 deal for Anthony's final pick. We've allowed it because you can't have one without the other. Let's go to the world of beach volleyball.
Yeah, my honorable mention is Kelly Wash-Dennis and Mr. May Trainer. I mean, you just can't have one with the dominant duo, those two. I mean, Kelly Wash, the 6 feet of sunshine, and Trainer. They both actually started at the 2000 Olympics in Sydney at the age of 22. It was after that Olympic game when they actually became partners and won this dominant run of 3 straight gold medals between 2004 and 2012, and they even had an unbeaten streak that went to 112 matches at one point. They were just completely dominant. Whenever they really did kind of put beach volleyball on the map as a Summer Olympic sport, because now it's something that a lot of people kind of tune into. That's definitely my honorable mention. Like, they went into the 2004 Summer Games unbeaten in 90 matches. To be that good and that dominant, and that's before you get to the Olympics, and then you basically just run roughshod over everyone else. I think the friendship as well played a big part in the chemistry and how they were able to work as a tandem. But I mean, Washington won a bronze medal with at the age of 38 in 2016. When April Rose as a partner and trainer have retired after 2012. But you go back to those two, I don't think there's ever close. As beach volleyball becomes bigger and bigger, you're not going to see a more dominant combination than Washington and Trainer.
No, I mean, I definitely have to agree with that. I mean, beach volleyball was, considered a niche Olympic sport. Not everybody was crazy about it. It was like, why are you trying to bring something from, Southern California, beach bum, surf bum stuff, or from, Australia, same thing. Like they kind of equated it. Not a lot of people took it seriously and gave it a lot of weight until you saw these two women step onto the sand. And then all of a sudden their matches became must see. NBC was giving them primetime slots, when the Olympics were overseas. And to watch them, not just, I mean, the Aussies were the kings and queens of beach volleyball at that point. And then you watch these two women come in and just totally dominate the field. It was real. And the teamwork between the two of them, you kind of lost track of where one left off and the other began. it was just seamless to watch their teamwork. They were dominant. They enjoyed the hell out of it. And yeah, to see one play without the other, Anthony, just felt weird because it, as much as, you know, each of the one of them had 3 names after getting married. It was weird to not say all 6 names, you know, in that last go around.
I don't remember. I think Walsh got married after 2012. But Kerry Walsh Jennings was actually the only way. It was only said in 2016 when she actually teamed up with a person who she beat in the gold medal game in 2012 in April Ross. Jay said it perfectly. And by the way, Anthony stole my pick here again. I literally, Jay can tell you, I was about to say, you know what? Here's an out of field pick. And then Anthony's like, here's an out of field pick. I'm like, oh no, not again. So me and Anthony have to save Wayne's link tonight. But Jay said it perfectly. No one, I didn't say give a damn about beach volleyball, but beach volleyball was kind of like one of those events that you put in the daytime to give NBC a little bit of programming from 10 to 1. And now it's not fodder anymore. It's prime time. You want to see any American. See, unlike any of these other picks, May and Walsh put the sport literally on the map. You don't see that in any other portion of this list. There is no beach volleyball, at least in the way that it's covered now in the Olympics, without Misty May Trainer and Kerry Walsh. And one fun fact about Misty May is, you know, that she is part of President Orange's, that be Trump, on the President Council of Sports, along with this great threesome, Herschel Walker, Mariano Rivera, and Bill Belichick. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So we're just going to move
fun fact tonight, Rabbi, I got to say.
I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So we'll move on. It's amazing how this team just gelled together. 3 world championships, three golds in world championships, 3 golds in Olympic games. And when it comes to Walsh Jennings, there are like a million golds when it comes to the actual beach volleyball world tour that I can't even count. And I don't even think that they want to count. But Walsh and Trainer are 2 of the best female athletes in Olympic history. They dominate their discipline, and that's why they're on this list. We have one more American to go, but Jay decided to go a little into the Soviet side for the 3rd and final pick.
You can call it the Soviet bloc side. Yeah, mine is the only other non-American athlete on here. And no disrespect to Bo Derek. You youngsters can go Google that name. But the Perfect 10 originated in the 19...
We know who Bo Derek is. Stop it.
I'm not talking about you two. I'm talking about youngsters who may be watching.
What? You think millennial? Whatever. Go on.
Well, oh yeah, okay, where was I? The Perfect 10 originated at the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal, where a 14-year-old female Romanian girl became the first gymnast to ever be awarded a perfect score of 10.0, because back then, that's how scoring was done for her performance on the uneven bars. That girl was Nadia Comaneci. She would record the Perfect 10 6 more times and become the youngest all-around Olympic gold medalist ever. She received 7 perfect scores, won 3 golds in Montreal, uneven bars, balance beam, and individual, and a bronze for her floor. As part of the Romanian team that finished 2nd overall, she won a silver. Comaneci's performance at the 76 Games basically redefined both her sport and audiences' expectations of female athletes. She would go on to win 5 Olympic gold medals across 2 summer games, adding a pair of golds for the balance beam and floor exercise at the 1980 Games in Moscow. Again, the one we boycotted. But she retired from competition in 1984 and worked as a coach for the Romanian team before defecting to the United States via Hungary in 1989. Yes, the Iron Curtain was still up at that time, ladies and gentlemen. In 96, she married 1984 U.S. Olympic gold medal winning gymnast Bart Connor. She'd been helping him with his gymnastics school in Oklahoma since 91. She is still working as a commentator sometimes and as an overall ambassador for women's gymnastics, even after all these years. Here's what it comes down to for me, guys, and why she makes this list as my honorable mention. I believe that if Nadia Comaneci doesn't make perfect 10s in Montreal in 1976, the U.S. women don't become who they are. Mary Lou Retton, Shawn Johnson, Shannon Miller, Nastia Liukin, Dominique Dawes, Allie Raceman, Simone Biles. Women's gymnastics is what it is today because of a 14-year-old Romanian girl. And like I said, guys, that's why she's my honorable mention.
Well, I mean, when you hit the perfect 10 6 times, you are kind of raising the stakes. Yeah, 11 times. You're raising the stakes. I mean, I think, and you think about her performance, it kind of makes the competition have to raise their game up a little bit, and that's what she was able to do at the age of, what, 14?
14.
Yeah, that's a tender age. So like I said, like you can make the argument that she kind of lit the spark, and kind of like what we see in the United States as far as these the female gymnasts kind of coming into their own. Like I said, you think about Dominique Dawes, you think about Simone Biles, you think about Carrie Strong. That's a kind of a guy name, but an iconic moment in 1996. Mm-hmm. You think of Gabby Douglas, you think of all these female gymnasts, but Kaminishi kind of, she's because of what she was able to do in 76. Yeah, I think she kind of, like I said, it's a like you look at sports, a building block, and she was one of those building blocks that came with the next generation of great female gymnasts.
Yep.
I have 2 bits and pieces for you about Nadia Comaneci, by the way. Number 1, her theme song that she danced to became a top 10 single in the fall of 1976. That's how popular worldwide she was. And also, only I think Simone Biles might have done this once, but she was the female athlete of the year for all of the world in 1976, which is amazing considering you don't see gymnasts make that little tweak towards mainstream popularity. I want to mention 1980 though, as we mentioned it for the 3rd time today. Do you know who her coach was that got really pissed off about her winning the silver medal, and basically said, Comaneci's memoir said, that she was humiliated by his behavior?
Bella Caroli.
Bella Caroli! Yes, the very famous Bella Caroli, who represents the necessary old guard of gymnastics, and not saying that in a very good way.
Nope. And
but
he's married to
Mary Caroli, yes.
Who is the now former head coach of the U.S. women's gymnastics team, and the reason they called themselves the Final Five in their last Olympics is because they would be Caroli's last team as her, in her time as
yeah. Unfortunately, though, that shine has kind of worn off due to all of the Larry Nassar stuff.
Unfortunately.
But again, I think you said it perfectly, Jay. Without Nadia Comaneci, you don't have this platform for all of the other female gymnasts to pretty much blossom into what they are today. And this is a very good pick. And again, one of only 3 non-Americans on this list, unless Usain Bolt has gained it. No, I'm sorry. You're right. It is one of only 2 American issues. I forgot Eric. I keep forgetting Eric Heiden's American. Never mind. One of only 2 non-Americans on this list. And if you're going to pick a Russian athlete, this is the perfect.
Let's be fair. She's Romanian.
If you're going to pick an athlete from Europe, sorry.
Soviet bloc.
If you're going to pick an athlete from a communist country,
yes,
that would be the athlete I would pick. Very simple.
No East Germans on this list.
Well, there's no East Germans that deserve to be on this list. No offense to East Germany. If you're watching from East Germany, how you doing? Anyway, let's move on to our final pick, and it's a good old American from Cornwall, New York, the youngest of 6 children, and she is the only 2nd person to be on this list in the discipline of Winter Olympics, and it's another speed skater, and her name is Bonnie Blair.
Yep.
Blair made her Olympic debut in Sarajevo in 1984, wasn't expected to do any medaling and was just happy to be there. And she finished 8th in the 500 meters. At the time, Blair was really a short track and a long track speed skater. She won the short track in 1986, but then went exclusively long track in 1988 at the Winter Olympics in Calgary. There she won her first Olympic gold medal in the 500 meters and in bronze in the 1,000. She came back, and this is one of the most lucky things that there were 2 Olympics pretty much back-to-back in 92 and 94. So she won 2 gold medals in those same 2 Olympic disciplines in 1992, and then would win 2 gold medals again in those same disciplines in 1994, and had a couple of just out of the medal performances in the 1500. Blair is, after her Lillehammer performance in 1994, became one of the most decorated American Olympians of all time. Remember, it's very hard to do what Eric Heiden did and win in 5 different disciplines in 1980. So if you do something like Bonnie Blair did and get 6 gold medals, I think that's a damn good accomplishment. She was on her success in the 1992 Olympics. Back to that, gave her a lot of mainstream coverage. She was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She got a ton of endorsements, and then helped open the Pettit International Ice Center. Bonnie Blair is one of the most accomplished, and maybe the most accomplished, women Winter Olympian of all time. Sorry, Lindsey Vonn. Sorry, Michaela Schifrin. Sorry, anybody on the U.S. women's hockey team. But I think Blair, and again, I had a lot of choices for this final pick since it was the final pick in the draft. I wanted to go Winter Olympics, and I think if you have to have someone who represents the females in the Winter Olympics, I think Bonnie Blair is a very good choice.
Yeah, I can't argue with that choice, Rabbi. I mean, in terms of the most accomplished female U.S. Winter Olympians, how do you not put Bonnie Blair at the top of the list? I mean, what she accomplished over back-to-back Olympics, and as you said, she was in a situation where she had 2 Olympics back-to-back, only separated by 2 years as opposed to the usual 4, kind of kept her name a lot more in the forefront. You didn't kind of forget about her because you were pretty much done with 92 and you were already ramping up to 94. And she also, I mean, and granted, the comparisons are to a certain extent apples and oranges, but she was being compared to Eric Heiden because of the way she was dominating women's speed, women's speed skating, both short and long. I can't argue with this pick, and to me, it's a great way to close out the show. We start with, one of the most accomplished women in the Summer Games ever with Simone Biles, and we end it with one of the most accomplished women of the Winter Games ever from the USA, and Bonnie Blair.
Yeah, I definitely agree with this pick. I think because I remember 1994 watching Bonnie Blair in action, being a 5th grader and being amazed. Like, it was one of the few times I was sit and watch the Winter Olympics. I wasn't really invested in it, obviously as a kid as I am now. But to watch her win gold in the 500 meters and become the first woman to win 5 Olympic gold medals. It's astonishing in itself. Like I said, Bonnie Blair is definitely one of the most decorative athletes of all time. But also, fun tidbit, when else happened in 1994, in January 1994, that became a little more infamous, that may have a little taken away from Bonnie Blair getting more attention than she should have.
I know what you're talking about. Have no idea what you're talking about whatsoever. No Tanya Harding, no.
I'm drawing a blank, Anthony. I don't know.
I mean, it was something for the practice.
Only you could club it into the back of my head. I think I would know.
Club it to the back of the knee. It made a really good movie that a couple of years ago that was pretty good. So, it was actually a movie. It was actually on Hulu. It was actually must-watch TV. But yeah, I don't. Yeah. But getting back on track. Bonnie Blair is a great way to end the show. It's kind of like, bookend. We picked the most dominant, possibly the most dominant female summer athlete, and we close the show with arguably the most dominant female winter athlete.
All right. Yeah, we do close the show with that. But however, since we have a few minutes before the end of the show, since we close at 11, I want to mention one topic today that came out, and that's in college football. We finally have the first fallout of the college football season when the Big Ten announced that they are going exclusively conference only for this season, and that could start a trend in all of college football. I'm very interested to see what your guys thought about this. They'll take away the non-conference games.
Which means they're going to be allowed to get out of existing contracts with.
Yes, they are. They basically have said that they are not doing any conference games, and they're not doing any non-conference games, which I think the biggest one would have been Ohio State actually traveling to Oregon in week 3. It's a big move, and I wanted to know if anybody thinks that this is going to ramify to everything else.
It's a big move, and I get it. And for the Power 5 conferences who can make up, the non-conference games that they had with Power 5 teams within their own conference, and even with, the maybe the cupcakes, no disrespect to to what we called, Division I AA back in the day. I just can't get around to saying FCS teams, but the ones to me who are going to suffer are those FCS teams who make and sometimes almost cross-country trips to the Power 5 team's house, knowing full well that chances are they're going to get shellacked, Appalachian State against Michigan aside, and just to get the payday that they, that's a big payday for them that helps fund their football program's budget and other programs at their school. So I understand why it's being done. You're trying to limit travel as best you can, but man, there are FCS schools who are going to be scrambling. I mean, they may be able to fill them within their own conferences, but the loss of that payday and what it means for their schools, that's wow. You can't underestimate the effect that is going to have. And it may change. And if it is something that continues to go forward, even if it's just short term until the NCAA feels that they are out of the woods in terms of Corona, this is something that could hurt, FCS teams for short term and potentially longer than that, because I don't know how you make up those paydays, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, I'm not questioning. You think about the smaller colleges when they go to Alabama, when they go to Auburn, and even though they have literally like no shot of winning, it's the exposure and the money that kind of, it's kind of the silver lining to all that. And now you don't get those out of conference games, and you wonder too, if there is a college football season, how does that play into the college football playoff? Because a big thing we talked about since its inception was scheduling out of conference teams and like strength of schedule. That's gonna play into? But also you gotta think about the Big Ten. One of the teams is Rutgers, so you kind of think like, well, one of those. I mean, the rest of the Big Ten teams kind of have to make a cross-country trip to Camden, New Jersey to play Rutgers if they're on the schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see the fall. Also, the Ivy League, no fall sports at all. So we're seeing coronavirus kind of really make continuous impact in how sports is being affected. I mean, we're watching MLS return in a bubble. We're watching the NBA kind of get ready for that bubble. The National Hockey League and their hub cities as well. And we're seeing Major League Baseball about to start a 60-game sprint to the finish line with virtually no fans in attendance. So we're seeing, like we've seen back in March with the very first positive tests in the NBA, the domino effect of what, not just the pandemic itself, but how it's being handled, or let's be honest, mishandled in many cases, how it's playing a major impact, not just in sports, but the economic side of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Rabbi, you wonder if this is going to trickle down into college basketball, where, your pre-conference schedule, how is that going to be affected? Because again, there were situations where a lot of the Power 5 conferences, plus the Big East schedule, those FCS teams, as well as some, key out-of-conference matchups. How do you do that? What happens to all of those, beginning of the season little tournaments like the Battle for Atlantis or the coaches?
The Wounded Warrior Classic at MSG.
Cancer. I mean, what happens to those? You wonder, has college football, by making this, ruling, how is that going to trickle down and impact the rest of college athletics?
Yeah, and I think it's not I think the FCS schools will be fine. I'm worried about like smaller conferences out of the Big Five, like the Pac-12. They need some of these major games against the SEC and the Big Ten, and now they have no choice but to stick in the Pac-12. I think this is a necessary move, though, and I think this is a damage control move because, again, we're not guaranteed to have any college football, at least in the fall of 2020, and this is the first way to at least limit travel. I know Anthony basically just said Rutgers is this cross-country trip. It's not even half of the country, so let's hold off on that one. But
going from the Midwest to
it's still not west to east. It's
only a 2-hour
Rutgers. It's a 3-hour plane ride.
Yeah,
but we need this. This will have trickle-down effects that we'll see in the rest of college football and probably college basketball, at least for the next academic year of 2020, 2021. That does it for this week's show. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz. We are live every Thursday, sometime around 9 or 9:30, on Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines, YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines if you want to see this show the next day. And Jay?
Twitter, ONTH, Sportslines, one word, where all of our social promotion goes, so you know where to go to get links to come watch us, whether it's live or up on YouTube.
Next Thursday, we get back to live sports with a preview of the 2020 baseball sprint, known as their 60-game season. We will preview the Mets, the Yankees, and we will preview the competition for the Mets and the Yankees. That would be the AL and NL East. We also are looking to get some people on. We'll get you on that the next few days. NBA is the week after, July 23rd, where we'll talk about what's left of the Brooklyn Nets as they go into the bubble. And spoiler alert, it's not much. And we'll also talk about who the favorites are to win the 2020 NBA asterisk. Title. Anyway, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz. This is On the Sports Lines. Good night.
Good night, everyone.